I love it. I love it.
I think it felt like my heart, but that was my anxiety, whatever you want to call it, trying to trick me. But if I can think clearly and use my intellect, it was not my heart. It couldn't have been my heart. I didn't know the girl. I only knew her for like 5 weeks. Like it couldn't have been my heart.
It is not a hurt, it is not an upset, but it is the ego. And the ego survives on the impulsive driven mind.
That's how the ego survives.
Yes, ego builds and survives on the impulsive driven mind with claim that I am the body and I am the mind.
Oh yeah.
So, as long as I am the body, then I relate to others. The moment I relate to others, this mind has a strong expectation with the likes and dislikes. Then the entire thought process revolves around, and then the I thought is taken up by the mind, which says, I am hurt and upset. That I thought is an ego.
Yeah.
You are right. It's a very beautiful way that you have analyzed yourself. So that is how I make it more clear that we should have a cognitive ability. It's all about cognitive ability means the knowledge. It's all about shift the paradigm.
Yeah.
So when I shift the paradigm of my life, the life changes completely. What is the paradigm shift? The life that I live, it is impulsive driven mind with an emotional bondage, with a strong likes and dislikes, with a strong expectations from the situation, from the people, from the relations. This is one paradigm. But why this paradigm of living? Because we have never understood that there is a real self and we are living with the false self. So modern psychology talks about ego and this ego and that ego and behavior, etc. We directly hit our mind. Here is a false self. What is false self? That appears to exist but do not exist, and that is known as ego. That appears to exist. That appears to exist. Mirage water appears to exist, but it
That's
does. But
the
it does.
ego is the mirage. What the mirage?
Yes, it is a mirage water.
It's the rope snake.
It's a rope snake. But
Is it is it
we,
possible to? Does everyone have an ego?
yes,
Do you have an ego?
yes,
So it's not that. So the goal is not to get rid of the ego, but to recognize what the real self is and what the ego is, and think clearly and always be the real self.
I love it. Your conclusion is good, so I'm going to add something more. I will go by the teachings of one of the greatest masters who lived in the 19th century. He says you have to live with a ripe ego, not with an unripe ego. No, like the fruit. Fruit ripens and fruit remains unripe.
Yeah.
So when it remains unripe, it continues to stick to the stem of a tree. So that stem of a tree is a metaphorically understood that I continues to remain a kind of, I have a kind of selfishness. I have a lot of expectations, and all those expectations points to the peace and happiness from a situation, from a person, from a relationship. So I want to remain stuck with that. I don't want to change myself. And what is the ripe ego? The ripe fruit falls from the stem. I have left it. I have left it. So that ripe ego, I have to live with it. There is no other option. As long as in the world outside, I have to interact with the ego. So if I interact with the ripe ego, I have no problem.
Yeah.
But the moment, and when I act with the ripe ego, I continue to live with the real self also. The real self passes on what is right and good in my life.
Does this does does this knowledge that we talk about and that you have and that I want to gain, doesn't it, I feel like it makes it harder when you know this to live in the world that we live in, because 99.9% of the people are so ignorant. And so if I'm trying to be friends with somebody or date a girl and I think one way and she doesn't think this way, it just, because everybody, if I watch the whole world, everybody lives in this crazy ego, false self, buying cars.
Yes, yes.
It
Ask.
doesn't, it makes it harder. Does it make your life
No,
harder?
it gives you a great opportunity, like the Jesus, the way he started living after enlightenment, the way the Buddha started living.
What's the opportunity?
It is an opportunity that I'm living in the world that is full of ignorance, so I live with that light. I live with that awareness. Hence, I made myself foolproof from the suffering. And when I communicate with the others, it may make a sense to the others. That is what the Buddha did, that is what the Jesus did, that is what our great masters lived their life.
Okay.
So it is not, I am not focused on others who are living in ignorance. I am totally focused on myself, that am I living in the knowledge? Am I living with the real self? Am I living with the ripe ego? See, for example, you meet a person and who brags and who shows the ego. You have an opportunity to remain calm and quiet. Your mind says, no, that is not my way. I'm okay. I am very rich. I'm richer than you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your existence provided you a lot of riches. There
Okay.
was a guy, do you know the richest guy in America 80 years ago or 90 years ago? Around 100 years ago, I would say. What is his name? And I forgot his name. I will remember, then I'll tell you. So there was a great master, Swami Vivekanand, who lived until 37 years of age. He is known as one of the greatest enlightened masters of all the times. So he was in US, and this guy, he owned the Shell company and the gas petrol company. What is his name? I'm slipping.
The Hemingway or
No,
the
no,
unknown?
it's a great. He became very sick, and so according to the today's terms of the money value, he was known as the richest guy.
Okay.
So his friend asked him to meet Swami Vivekananda. But this guy was extremely selfish. He said, I am working hard. It is because of my talent that I have earned this much of money. Why should I spare this money to the Americans? I'm not going to give any money to Americans. I'm not going to return. So anyhow, he has a lot of physical and mental problems and the stress. So he went with his friend to this master. So the master smiled and said, why don't you spare some money to your fellow Americans? No, I'm not going to spare. This is my hard work. So there was a conversation went on, and he got upset and he returned. After a month, he returned again to the master and he said, look at this newspaper. Now you should thank me. I have given donation of $1 million. Around it, the story was around 1890 or 1892 or 93. So this master Swami Vivekanand didn't say anything. So he insisted that you should thank me. Vivekanand said, "You should thank me. I showed you the right way. I showed you how to break your ego." And then he opened a non-profit organization which is still helping millions of people all around the world. And he could change his life. So, what happens with that false sense of identity? We strengthen our selfishness. In that selfishness, we have a lot of expectations from the others. And that expectations includes the peace and the happiness which is not available outside. So I should have the cognitive ability, whether I say cognitive ability or I should think. If I don't think, I'm carried away by the animal mind. Animal mind is extremely selfish. Why they are selfish? Because they have no other alternative. It is impulsive driven mind. So how to ease and how to break that shell of ego? That is why I asked the question, who sends you the SMS message? Who calls you to react, to get upset, to get stressed? Now see that what happens to your mind. Come on, no one sends me the message. Then why you are upset? So your mind goes inside and it starts thinking, oh, it is because of this. I am expecting from this situation, this person so much, and I'm upset. Oh, I'm upset because of my expectation. So if I drop that expectation, will I remain upset? No. One guy had a very high expectation on the LinkedIn that you come to Scottsdale and give a talk to my group. He has been chasing me for the last 1 week. And today I got an email that that event is cancelled. So I said, okay, that is okay. That is the, why should I expect? So now see what is the biggest problem of this false self or the false ego or the ripe ego is that I am expecting from you, I don't get, and I upset myself, I frustrate myself. I have to, I have an intellect to think over it. I don't think about it. So when I don't think about it, I continue to get upset. And then I repeat the same event again and again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Until I know that I have a real self. Otherwise, I continue to work with the false self and I get upset. And I'm making fun of myself. When I'm stressed, I'm suffering, I'm making fun of myself. I am stressed because of outer situation, outer person, outer event at a particular time, in a particular situation, at a particular event. It means I'm making fun of myself. I don't realize that I'm not worthy of suffering. And still I'm suffering. That is the problem. So this problem, we say, this is the problem of ignorance. Ignorance means I don't know myself. I have a wrong understanding. Go back rope to snake and the mirage water, and I see the earth is stationary and still earth is moving. So I live in ignorance. So what should I do? I should remove the ignorance. How should I remove the ignorance? By knowledge. What knowledge? Knowledge of the Eastern wisdom. You cannot remove the ignorance of this kind by physics or chemistry or biology or modern psychology. They will give you a lot of pills if you go to modern psychology.
Yeah.
And they will make you more problem. So once we have that clear understanding that now see there what is the problem comes. You go to the mall, you park the car outside, you believe once you return the car will remain present there. Same way you believe your phone, you believe your car, you believe all the gadgets, you believe those people. Now recently this couple in India, he invested around $1 million with his friend in the stock, and for 1 year he did not tell me. For 1 year, he was getting around 15 or 16% of the return every month. So he was very happy. And then he told me, I want to talk to you some personal problem. I said, what is that? So he started narrating me the story that he is a good friend of mine and he told me ₹500,000 and then I invested and I started getting the return for about 6 months. He told me to spend another $500,000. So I put another $500,000. And then I asked one of my friends, who is also my student, to invest another $500,000. Now 2 years have passed. For the last 6 months, he is not paying any money, and he doesn't want to pay even my invested money. I said, did you ask me before, at the time of investing? Did you? So what should I do? I have lot of problems. So now what is the problem? You see the problem? That is what happens. So he says that I have certain secrets where I invested the money with my friend. If he exposes me, I will be in problem. I said, I can understand your problem. He told me that problem. I said, you both have the problem. You can also expose him and he can also expose you. So nothing is going to happen. So now first thing, what happened to you? The false self is greedy. Understand this, that ego becomes greedy. Greedy, yes. It develops an extreme greed and it has an over expectations. So he told me that you look at that he is a good friend of mine after all, that's why I invested. I said, what happened now? Is he not still a good friend because you are not getting benefit from him and he stopped paying you? What has changed? Tell me. So you were deluded by your own mind in greed by the false eye, and that is why you are suffering. Why should you? So sorry, sir. I said, why are you saying sorry? You have not given me any money to. So there in these situations, I asked him that what is the right and good in these situations? Did you invested the money by check? Yes, I invested 800,000 rupees by the check. Then yes, then we have to take some legal remedy. But in that legal remedy, because of the greed, you have to invest the money again on the Lord. So anyhow, I just told him that this is how you have to work, but keep your cool and calm. Don't get upset. That is the first thing.
Yeah.
And use the same tool you are scared of that he will expose you. You use the same tool to tell him that I will expose you before your wife. Second step is filing a case. Third step, going to the lawyer. But most important thing, maintain your calm and the cool. If you don't maintain the calm and cool, means your false ego is working in an opposite direction. It was working with the greed first, that's why he is a good friend of yours. Now he is an enemy. Now you want to react and fight. No, no need to fight. Why? Because the moment you have an anger and the rage, you are going to be more frustrated.
What happens like when someone really lives in this state that you live in? What changes about the life?
Paradigm shift. So, one paradigm, the old paradigm of living, that you are living with the false I, the new paradigm, you are living with the real self. That real self takes care of the ripe I. It doesn't want your ripe I to become unripe in any situation, in any condition. And you don't take any misadventure like the one he has taken. 16%, if you are getting in the bank, maybe 10%. Do that. Calm down.
Yeah.
So I should be aware that my mind does not fall with the greed. My mind does not have an over expectation, because it will repel you. It will return with a greater force, with an anxiety and anger and a reaction, with a fight and lot of other stuff. Why you do that?
Yeah.
Why you do that? Why you did that? Because you still believe that this wealth is going to give me happiness.
Or like or anything.
Or anything. Or anything, yeah. I said,
Is that like how do you like but aren't there certain things that you so we can enjoy certain things like it doesn't mean like you just have to always be thinking like okay so like I like to have coffee. I have to know though that like I'm still happy without the coffee. Like it doesn't.
no,
I
no,
mean,
no. That you have just pointed out the problem. Now see, now you have shifted the paradigm. You are living with the new paradigm. We are living with the real self of what
yeah,
is right and good. The way you think and speak and act, and you allow the ripe ego to work in the world with the. Now the ripe ego says that I like coffee. Take it. Why you take it? Because you know you are not dependent on it.
yeah,
You like it, so you take it. You like eggplant, you eat your eggplant, so there is no problem. But what happens with the new shift in paradigm in your life? You like coffee, you don't have a coffee, you are happy. You're happy. But in the with the old paradigm, you get crazy. You get crazy. So that changes completely. That changes your mind. Your mind remains always free.
yeah.
The mind does not have a sense of dependence. Mind does not have an emotional dependence on anything in the world. So now your liking and disliking is screened by the knowledge, by the intellect. Your liking and disliking is not controlled by the emotional bondage, emotional dependence. That's a big difference. Your mind remains all the time free.
What about being physically dependent on something?
Same.
If you drink a bunch of coffee and then you stop, you might physically feel unwell.
That means you are already, you did not have an emotional freedom from the coffee.
Okay.
That shows. I always love coffee. But for the last almost 1 year, I used to take a coffee after the session, 9:30 or 10. I stopped it completely and nothing happened. Nothing happened. So my wife was saying that you have stopped taking. I said, no, I don't feel like taking it now. So that state of the mind lives with you. So I don't feel like taking it. Yeah, it's okay. It's a part of the life. So when you say you like it, you don't like it with an emotional dependence.
I see.
That is then what happens in your life? You lie down in the night and within few minutes you fall into deep sleep because the mind is not disturbed with unwanted, unwelcome thoughts. Why you have those unwanted, unwelcome thoughts, my friend? Because of those expectations, because of the emotional dependence on the things.
I feel like that's such a hard thing to give up because like
No,
if you give up your ego, you almost feel like you're giving up a piece of who you are. Like what like and so you just it feels very odd to let go because of you think all these things are what make you and you've been doing them for so long. And so if you were just to say I am not going to be attached to anything anymore and to lose my ego, it seems like you lose almost like an identity. Like I
it
it's
is better to lose that identity of the false I to give a place to the real self.
yeah.
One, this mind, or you can say the false I, is not going to leave you so easily as long as we have a sense of attachment and over dependence on the things. Third aspect, we are living heavily conditioned life. And that conditioning is coming from the false side. If I lose this, I have nothing. No, you will have everything. First, let me recognize I am something. Let me recognize I am something. So when you recognize I am something, second step of recognition is this is the false I. So when you recognize it is a false I, you become nothing. That is the transition period. So the fear and sometimes frustration will come. But if you continue to be in the state of nothing, you become everything. And that
Well,
everything is the real self. Something to nothing to everything.
no, that's why it seems like so contradictory, but didn't even Jesus say like in order to gain the world you must lose everything? Like lose everything to gain everything.
That losing is losing emotional dependence through a self inquiry,
Yeah.
losing the greed through the self inquiry, losing the emotionally and mentally upset by the self inquiry. So when he uses the word lose everything, he says what you have built with an old paradigm, with your false ego, you have to lose it in order to give a place to what is higher.
Yeah, he said in order to find oneself, one
Yeah.
must first lose themselves.
Yes. You know,
So
with
very smart.
the beauty of the Eastern wisdom that it is not a religion, it is not a cult, it is not a dogma, it does not believe on a particular image of the god and goddesses. It says understand it, be very clear, practice it, change your mind, make the mind from impure to pure, and finished. Then you shift from the old to the new paradigm of living. Then actually you know the truth of the religion, the truth of the teachings of these masters. Otherwise, people will give the wrong interpretation. You
Yeah.
can also say that the technology of self discovery has been stripped off from the religion. That is what the Eastern wisdom is.
It just it
I
makes me very judgmental though, because I live in a world where everyone around me I feel like is such a fucking fool. And they're just
judge
so
yourself. Shift your paradigm. Don't judge others. As long as you are judging others, you are living with an unripe ego. This is none of your business. None of your business to judge.
You're right.
No, that's none of my business. I have to judge myself how I respond to you. Do I move with love and care and affection to you? That is, let me keep understanding myself.
So if I'm judging, then I'm living like I'm a fool too.
Yeah, definitely. I have no right. Every living being has a right to exist because the existence has provided them the life. Who the hell I am to judge? But at the same time, I am living what is right and good. Through right and good, my mental awareness goes up. So that awareness helps me to live with those people and do not to keep a distance with those people. How simple it is. I understood. This guy, okay, I understood, so let me keep a distance, that's all. But not to fight and keep a distance.
I need to get a cough drop.
Hmm. So the simple solution: recognize and reject consciously what I am not.
What does that mean?
That means that I live with the body, but I'm not the body. I live with the car, I'm not the car. I live with my home, but I'm not the home. I live with the smartphone, but I'm not the smartphone. What is attachment? I claim I'm the body. I claim I'm the mind. So when the mind is frustrated, I recognize I am frustrated. No, this mind is frustrated because of the expectations. So that is such a beautiful concept, can easily be applied. I live with the body, but I'm not the body. I live with the mind, but I'm not the mind. I live with the car, but I'm not the car. I live in this house, but this house is not me. So that breaks the shell of the old paradigm where I live with the false I. So my mind becomes clear. So the moment I know that I'm not the body and the mind, but I use them as an instrument to live my life, I'm just free. Then what happens? I never get attached, do not fall into an emotional bondage. Then I think, speak, and act in peace and happiness, love, and wisdom. So this is what the Jesus said. I used to go to a Methodist church to give a talk. They always loved me in New Jersey. So I went one day and I saw the Jesus. It was such a beautiful picture. So I started looking at it for a couple of minutes, and the priest, they said, "What you are looking?" I said, "No, I see my master is there."
Hmm.
So you are not caught by the dogma, belief, cult, and religion. You are able to perceive the masses given by all the masters are the same. So the Eastern wisdom has become a technology. It has become a technology which guides us, those principles, free from all the dogma, cult, belief in the religion. And it directly says, understand your mind. If you have an impure mind, it will cause bondage and suffering. Make the mind pure.
But we've been talking about this for many years now, and like it's still to me like we say we are not the mind, we're not the body, we are the real self. But to me, it's like, how do you even explain that to somebody? Like you seem like such a I feel like a fool. Like I'm like, well, what like they're like, well, what does that mean? You're the real self. Like you feel like you it feels like you don't really know how to explain it.
Yes, 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 you are right. So the master says the very first step, or I would make a statement made by the master, the mind or the intellect cannot know the real self directly. So then how to know it? The mind and the intellect, let us use the intellect, it is the same mind, intellect thing. So intellect can know the real self indirectly.
What does that mean?
You know the mirage water, you see the mirage water directly, but it does not exist. You know it indirectly that it does not. From where you know it in your mind. You see it, it is a fact. You see it, it is an experience. You see, when you are driving on the highway is running behind you. You see it, it is your experience. But in the knowledge inside, you know it is not running. I'm okay. Let me drive. So that is the first statement this master makes. Another statement, unqualified mind cannot know the real self.
Okay.
Unqualified mind cannot know the real self. You don't have a driving license, you have no right to drive. In driving, you should have rules of road, you should know. That's why we pass the written examination. And I should have a skill set of driving. Both the things are necessary. Now apply the same. What is a qualified mind? I should know the rules of the road. I should know the rules and the principles by which the real self works. First, and I should make my mind should be qualified. How the mind should be qualified? So there are rules, the power of discernment. I should know what is real self and what is false self. I should always keep in mind the distinction between.
Can you give me an example?
So that skill lives in the intellect, which is known as discernment. What is discernment? Discernment in Sanskrit is known as viveka. Literal meaning of the viveka is to separate the mixture. Take an example of a black sesame seed and the rice are mixed up. So we can separate it. How do we separate? We
Like how?
separate by knowing the properties of sesame seed and the rice. So, by the physical properties, this is white in color, this is black in color. So, let me separate the black ones here and the white one there. So, this is purely at the physical level.
Yeah.
Now, go a little deeper. How to separate milk from the water? You have to use a sophisticated machine to separate milk from the water. Now, come to the main thing. So, when we use the word discernment, we have to say that I have to separate real from the false. real from the false. So we say, what we say, the false keeps on changing. Whatever is changing, whatever is a part, product of anything, cannot be the real self. Now recognize. Now come to, am I the body or not? The body keeps on changing. First attribute, it means it is false. It builds the false self. Body is a part and product of so many elements, so many compounds, carbohydrate, protein, etc. So I am not the body. So you mean to say that that never changes? That is the real self? So we are getting a hint. This is the power of discernment. So that is how we are making the mind qualified. But no, not this one. So there are fourfold practices that makes the mind qualified. First is the discernment. Second is the dispassion. What is that dispassion? It is emotional freedom. I cannot judge my body if I am attached to the body, unless I am detached. I cannot objectively understand anything as long as I am attached. So that is the second power, is the dispassion. Third has the 6 treasures of the mind. That is so beautiful concept in the principle. We talk of the 6 enemies of the mind. We talk of the 6 treasures of the mind. So what happens? You follow the discernment. It results into dispassion. So you experience the changes in your life. What was troubling you yesterday is not troubling you today. Why? Because you have an emotional freedom. For example, from the cup of coffee. Why? You discern it. What did you discern? What you separated? You separated happiness and the joy on one side and coffee on the other. Why? Coffee does not have a property of peace and happiness.
So it's like with that girl, I never really discerned it. I looked at her as peace and happiness.
I know. That is why I asked you that give me 3 benefits of getting upset. You see that you did not discern it. You did not discern it. So whose fault it is? It is my fault. Why it is my fault? I am living in ignorance. What is ignorance? I am living with the false I.
Yeah.
So I did not discern the false I with the real. Now see, the magic happens. What the magic happens? What is magic? Through the power of discernment, it moves your mind to dispassion naturally. What do you mean by it? I look at the mirage water. I know it does not exist. It is false. It is unreal. So upset is being unreal. I get upset, I get hurt is unreal. And I still getting attached to what is unreal. No, I am scared of driving on the highway because the moment I start driving, I see the highway starts running behind me. It causes me a lot of problem. So what is that problem? Problem of ignorance. Why the problem of ignorance? Because I'm not able to discern what is real and unreal.
Okay, hold on. So then are you saying that everything is a mirage?
Find it out by yourself.
No, I just had some enlightenment because
answer is big yes. The entire world that appears is superimposed on the real self, the way the mirage water is superimposed on the sand and the sunlight. It appears true, but it is not true. The moment you have realized it, you are another Jesus, you are another Buddha, you are enlightened. Because now you realize the false. What is false? The mirage water cannot appears to exist without sand and sunlight. So what it means?
I know what it means. That nothing can appear without first me.
Nothing can appear without the real self, the very existence, and that existence the religion sees God. We say it is pure consciousness. Without that, no, but I'm not going there. I'm going to a simple thing.
Okay.
Whatever is false has a basis of real self. It cannot exist without the real self. So the way I negate in my head the mirage water, the way I negate the highway appears running, the way I negate the earth is stationary, the way I negate the false I. So then what is left? What is left is the real I. That's how I realize the real I. So I have to keep together. I negated the mirage water, I realize it is sand in the sunlight.
Yeah.
So they both should go together. That is an art of discernment, art moving into dispassion. And then what happens the moment you move into the dispassion? Your mind says, where I am. The mind says, you are so calm and relaxed and easy and carefree. Really? Let me check it again. Yes. You are again, you feel so much of calm. That is known as the inner treasures of the mind. The mind, that mind cannot believe and imagine that you are so calm now. You have no unwanted thoughts. You have no unwelcome thoughts coming to your mind. You are free. So the first time you recognize this false I was chasing me, overpowering me, superimposing on the real self is the problem, is the ignorance. The next day you wake up in the morning, you are so calm, you're relaxed. Mind says, no, you have to earn more money. More money? Yes, that is the project, but you don't get an emotionally attached to it. You earn more. You earn more. Oh, I didn't take up any cup of coffee. You have a sense of emotional freedom. You say, but your mind is calm. Your mind is asking you that are you dependent on the coffee? Mind says no. I'm okay. I can leave it. Oh, I can leave it. Yes. I have already left it. So what is happening? So you have become a qualified seeker. The intellect has become a qualified seeker by the power of discernment, one, power of dispassion, two, that lives in the mind, that does not live in outside. You do not fight with the mirage water to make it disappear. It does not exist. What does not exist? How can you make it exist and then you destroy it? The heart does not exist. And you try to, first you make believe yourself that it exists, upset exists, you are suffering that exists, and then you start a solution. How can you find a solution that does not exist? Why not recognize that it does not exist?
But like to me, it makes it seem like okay. So if everything that appears that I see is a mirage, then like
No, hold on. You have to prove to your mind that it is a mirage. If until you prove it is a mirage, your mind is not qualified.
How do I prove it?
Simply assumption will not work. That is what the principle is, fourfold practices. I make the intellect a qualified seeker by learning the power of discernment and living with that power of discernment, so that I live with the power of dispassion, and the dispassion gives me an emotional freedom, and that gives me the six treasures. What are those six treasures? I started working on the mind. Anytime mind perceives the mirage and I say, yes, I know it is a mirage. So, what happens? The mind does not create any sense of emotional freedom. You are able to withdraw the senses where they are attached. What it means? It means such a simple thing. You look at beautiful girl, you get obsessed with it. Now the senses are gone and attached to that. So you say, I appreciate beauty, but it doesn't mean that I'm attached. So
Yeah.
you have dropped the delusion. That is the second treasure of the mind. You realize through the power of discernment that this I is for the sake of seeing the name and the form. My eyes do not declare that you are handsome or someone is beautiful. Who says? It is the mind. And we have taken care of the mind in the first instant. Mind remain calm. You can appreciate who is beautiful, who is ugly, you can appreciate. But
We don't become attached.
don't get obsessed with it. Two things. But then the third power that comes, your mind awakens to that power that you have a sense of withdrawal, as if you are sitting over the mind rather than the mind is sitting over your head. So you are sitting over the mind means that you live casually, carefree. Someone says this car is so beautiful. Yes, you said this car is really beautiful. I appreciate. I appreciate it. But the mind lives in extraordinary awareness of calmness without any attachment. Third treasure. And the fourth treasure, we have millions of impressions that is very hard to die. They return again. For example, in your case, the cup of coffee. For example.
Yeah.
So there, the mind gets a power of endurance without any conflict in the mind. Oh, I didn't get the cup of coffee. Then what? Then what? I'm not dying for it. Endurance, the power of endurance lives in your mind. Not only for this in case of a coffee, but in living your relationship, living with your family members, person, stranger, people in the business, living your life and driving, etc., etc. These are the four treasures. The fifth, then what happens? I'm answering your question. Fifth is the faith. Faith, you get a tremendous faith that yes, now there is a real self. The
Yeah.
mind is keep looking for the real self in daily life, in daily thought, speech, and action. So that faith begins the inquiry, the self inquiry. Your mind remains naturally focused not on the false self, not on the false self around the world, in front of the world, but it says, I want to know the real self. So you have all the six treasures. Third qualification. What happens? The mind has an intense desire to know the real self. Now there is no mixture. What is that mixture? When the mind is not qualified, that intense desire to know the real self, which is of the nature of peace and happiness, when the mind is not qualified, it starts running towards wealth, it starts running towards girl, it starts running towards the things in the world. And where the mind imposes peace and happiness, we forget everything. We waste couple of weeks in the months. We realize it is a mistake. We commit the same mistake again. How many times we have to commit mistakes?
Never again.
And so the more we make the same mistake again, but expecting a different result.
That's insanity.
That is insanity. This master who wrote almost 3,000 years ago, what he said, he made such a wonderful statement. I'm giving my own interpretation. He said that everyone sees practically, everyone has an experience that their forefathers have died, but still their mind believes that by any means I will continue to live. And that is only because of the false eye. You just examine your mind one day and your mind will say, anyhow, I can live by using this mean or that means, and those means have been applied by our forefathers, by the millions of the people again and again and again. But my mind feels if I apply this, I will have a different result. That is the greatest delusion. Everyone, some deep inside at the unconscious level, that is the greatest ignorance. I see the dead body is there. That dead body is a human body. I know that, but my mind doesn't want to believe that I will die. That is why you see when we go for a service or to a cremation ground, we start evading talking about the death. We start talking about our business. We start talking about our problems. We want to forget that dead body. We don't want to face it.
So then what are you trying to say? That we all need to know that we're going to die?
I am not the body. So let the body die. Who cares?
But if you died, like we wouldn't be able to have.
First, answer the question: who dies?
Okay, if your body dies.
If your body dies, your car becomes rotten, and what you do? Do you keep it in your garage?
No, but doesn't that make you sad? Like you and I, you wouldn't be around your kids.
You will be happy to buy a new car, or you are sad with the old car that is rotten and broken?
Maybe this is a conversation for next week, but I'm curious.
Yeah, but again, I told you there are three things. The intellect cannot know the real self directly. So what it means? The intellect can know the real self indirectly. And I have given you an example of the mirage water. It knows simultaneously. I know it is an illusion. At the same time, I know it is because of the sand and the water. This is the basis of mirage. So it knows indirectly. So what it means? The knowledge takes place in the mind. I need not to remove the mirage water. The moment I reach there, it is not. It does not exist. I don't see any mirage water. Second, intellect, unqualified intellect cannot know the real self. But qualified intellect can know the real self. This is what I have briefly explained. The third, that intellect illumines the real self. What it means? Intellect knows the real self when it is qualified indirectly.
Okay.
3. And from there we have to start our journey.
Yeah, I feel like we have a lot to talk about.